My first question for you is, after following you, I've seen that your career path has always been health related. And I know that you're very healthy. You have an active lifestyle. I think you like to surf and play tennis, if I'm right.
I do like to do those things. Yes.
Do those things. So have you always been really healthy into living this way, or is it something that happened later in life?
Definitely haven't always been healthy. I mean, I grew up like I was born in 1984. I'm 40. So like I feel like packaged food maybe was at its heyday in our childhood. Like,
Yeah.
my mom cooked dinner every night, but like when I came home from school, it was like bagel bites, like, I don't know. It would
Yeah,
be like you
totally.
need to eat something, a s'mores Pop Tart on literally like a s'mores Pop Tart on your way to school. Like we had the drawer with like gushers. I was like thinking about this last night. I'm like, God, like,
Yeah.
it's
That was me
crazy.
too. I'm 1985. So
Yeah, it's like
that,
so much just and like my mom's so super healthy now, but they just like didn't know, like it just wasn't as she didn't know. Some people knew, but she certainly didn't. This is the Midwest in the 80s and 90s.
Mhm.
And I would say, was I like totally unhealthy? No, like my was cooking every meal. We weren't like, there wasn't this like eating out and ordering out that I think we have now. Like that's a little crazy. Um,
Yeah, that's a good point.
that's a whole different thing. But then in my early 20s, I traveled in South America for 2.5 years. And I actually wasn't always in the health and wellness industry. I got an accounting degree. I actually got a job as a recruiter. I quit 3 days later, called the accounting firm that had offered me a job that I declined to take the recruiting job, asked for the job back. I was an accountant for 9 months. And then I quit my accounting job to be a waitress. And then I moved to South America for 2.5 years, learned how to surf, ended up moving to Hawaii, getting my yoga certification in Hawaii, and then kind of like started working. And I was like doing a bookkeeping work for my friend's sister's like little entrepreneur like company. She had sold backpacks, like very specialized backpacks. This was like before social media, right? And then I went to work at an advertising agency and I managed the Frito-Lay account. So I got a lot of like big food experience, but it certainly wasn't health stuff. But along that journey, I was living in South America and I met this girl from California. I'd never been to California where I live now. I had never been there, but I met her in Colombia, the country of Colombia. And she was like, "Oh, I have a friend who had cancer and her doctor always recommends she does this standard process cleanse once a year. And standard process is like a really clean supplement company in Wisconsin. They grow all their own herbs. It's like an herbal supplement company and they have like a cleanse that probably has like, I don't know, psyllium husk and God knows what else to like cleanse the colon and you're taking who knows, right? And I did it. But with this cleanse came this little packet of information and it was like, eliminate processed food. It was like eliminate basically everything except fruits and vegetables and take these pills for like 10 days. So I did it. And then I was like, this is interesting. Like, I'm not constipated. I have more energy. Like, I'm going to keep eating this way for a little while longer. So I was pescatarian for probably like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years and really like avoiding processed food, probably only doing like goat cheese and feta cheese, avoiding all other dairy. Like I was kind of,
Mhm.
Food Inc. had come out in the movie theater. If you remember when Food Inc. was out, like I went to see it going in downtown Chicago. I read Skinny Bitch. I read Michael Pollan's In Defense of Food. I read every like health food book I could get my hands on, but really it just kind of started with my own like diet kind of solving low grade health issues that you would never like go to a doc for, but you just kind of have in the background.
Isn't that like funny? I had like same kind of issues that I would never complain to anybody about.
No,
And I just
you're
like,
just
"You-
no,
this
my
just
the women in my
you."
family are just constipated. Like, yeah, I just have seasonal allergies and my eye always waters and I take Allegra D and it's fine. Yeah.
And it's like you change one thing and you get some relief and you're like, okay, and then I'm going to change something else. And
Yeah.
then it just sort of builds off that. Yeah, like, I mean, food is just, it's crazy how many things it can unlock for you in the terms of the way you
Totally.
feel and you operate and all that stuff. And it sounds like you really are very in tune with your instincts and you knew you wanted to switch your job. And so you just did it. Like, how do you do that? Did you ever feel like my life is falling apart? I can't do this? Or you just sort of go full on into it?
I mean, I would say who hasn't felt like my life is falling apart by doing this, right? Like, I think
Those
that's
are
what
big changes though. Like, I'm
yeah,
just
no,
going to
they
move to
are.
South
But
America.
I was 20 then too. Like, it does get a little harder. I was like, that was my 20s. It was like a perfect time to be really just trying on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I have never had a problem making change. That's always
That's
been
so
pretty
good.
easy for me. I think I'm pretty like adaptable. And I'm like clearly like, I think it all comes down to like learning what your values are as a human and what, we could value safety and security or we could value freedom and adventure. And I think I've always just been more of a freedom adventure person. That's like a top value of mine. I don't think even in my top 20 would be like safety and security.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
would be like someone who maybe grew up with, I don't know, in a family where money was like a big hot topic and there was a lot of like fighting about money or something like that. They might value just like a stable, safe, and secure job. For instance, I'm making this up, right? Just because that's kind of like what their life world kind of experience like
Yeah.
dictate. By the way, I say that and I don't want people to think I'm just some trust fund baby that like I don't even know why I have to justify this, but I'm just going to. I traveled in South America off 8 grand a year. I made $12,000 a year doing research for a political author. I saved 20 grand waitressing, and I haven't taken money from my parents since I was 18. I feel like I get this like shade online where people will be like, oh, you're just like privileged. So that's why you were successful as an entrepreneur. And I'm like, no, I moved to California. I knew no one. I supported myself. I bought my own 2011 Ford Escape. Thank you very much. And like, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's not like I had some grand privilege in the world that put me in a situation to kind of like be where I am, other than the balls to just say yes and go do and
Yeah.
try a bunch of stuff and meet a bunch of people.
Yeah, you've got like so much guts. And I think I'm super drawn to you because for me, having to be open to change and making change has like become my mantra because it is so not natural for me to take those types of risks. Like even doing this podcast is so far from anything I ever like just speaking on camera. It was so scary to me. And so I like to listen to your side. It sounds like you just have the guts. And that's like such a big part of doing anything and just having the guts to go for it and not letting, you get really closed off if you have a lot of fear about these types of things.
Yeah, for sure. And it's easy to get like analysis paralysis, right? So sometimes I just think, and I think you can like you can get 1,000 opinions and like you can do your, whatever that chart is you do, your pros and cons list, and you're just like not going to know until you feel what the experience feels like. And then you're either going to like stick it out or you're going to leave. But sometimes you have to just like feel the experience for yourself. You can't like think your way through these life decisions. And I think we just like take life too seriously too. Like it's like we're here for a short trip around the sun. Like, I don't know. What do you really have to lose? Like, I don't know. I think having that perspective helps you kind of like, I don't know, take risks because life is short and why not? I guess.
So true. And every single year it feels so much shorter. Did you always knew you wanted to start a business though? Like was that ever anywhere in your plan or was that sort of
Yeah,
figured
I
out?
did. I like in my 20s, I remember I was like, I want to start. When I was living in South America, I was making my own sunscreen. So I would like take Badger mineral sunscreen. I would like pop astaxanthin, these pills that are pink. I would squeeze them in my
Yes, I know what that
sunscreen,
is. It's the
add
algae.
that. My sunscreen would be pink. And I was like, there's no good like spreadable. And now it's in like, probably in Kelly
Every-
Slater's new, it's in a bunch of stuff, right? It's a natural sunscreen. Anyway, I wanted to launch a sunscreen company. I wanted to launch an infant formula company. I always kind of wanted to do it, but never really had an idea that I had like enough conviction for to really like persevere. And it was young and impressionable. And I remember like, I wanted to launch a board game at one point. Then I was like, okay, I can't do I'm not legit enough to do this. I need to go be a naturopathic doctor. So I have a degree behind my name so people will take me serious to launch a business. And then I'm like, this makes no sense. Like, you're just trying to, like, you're just have imposter syndrome and just go be a business person. If you want to be a business person, you don't need to be a doctor to be a business person.
That's such great advice. You always feel like you have to pad it with this and pad it with that. And I can do it
Yeah,
once I
it's
have
like
this.
you don't. Yeah,
It's totally stalling out.
totally. You can also just be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And like, that's also fine. Cause like, yeah, I got news for you. Like, no one knows what they're doing. Like,
Yeah.
no one. That's the
Yeah.
truth.
That's the
Yeah.
truth. Yep. So what was the idea? Why was the idea for Primal Kitchen like the one that stuck? What was
So
the inception?
I had been a big follower of Mark Sisson, my partner at Primal Kitchen, and I was just obsessed with the health and wellness industry. And I was running marketing for a brand called Kavita, and I didn't need to go to this marketing event. We sponsored a event that Mark put on called PrimalCon. I didn't need to go, like the marketing manager could have gone, but I wanted to meet Mark, so I went. And then I hit it off with he and his wife Carrie, and ended up giving them a ride home from the event. Quit Kavita, and Mark called like 3 months later, and he was like, "I want to launch this food company. Can you help?" So I came on as just a marketing consultant. $50 an hour, changed the name in the first meeting we had, did all the package design in house, hired the whole team, was the only kind of real employee working on Primal Kitchen, dedicated working on Primal Kitchen for the first like 18 months. But yeah,
Wow.
Had this idea like, I go to the grocery store and there was like a subgroup of us that were avoiding canola and soybean oil back then. This was 9 years ago. I would say canola oil and seed oils have like definitely entered the chat in a more
Yep.
mainstream way today than they had 9 years ago. But 9 years ago, it was very like people were at like Whole Foods meetings, raising their hand, being like, when are you getting canola and soybean out of this food bar at Whole Foods? Right. It was like
Funny it's still there.
yeah, I know, totally. But
Yeah.
this was like a subculture
Yeah.
movement,
Really
really
small.
subculture, like that long ago. So we, had Mark was working on a few products, and the first product we could commercialize was the mayonnaise. And mayonnaise is 75% oil. So it's an easy product to disrupt if you're looking at swapping out canola for a better oil like avocado. But also, most mayonnaise in the market, I want to say like maybe all of it had sugar added. So we were like, we're the first like sugar-free mayonnaise made with any oil besides canola, soybean, sunflower, or some combination thereof. And then we just kind of went from there. It was like, what
So like
other categories have sugar and canola oil in them, and how do we get them out? And that's kind of how we disrupted the other categories that we're still in.
and the
And the
sugar.
sugar, we
They
were
all
like,
have
sugar
sugar.
is not coming back. Like if you
Yeah.
look at the diet trends, right? Like we didn't want to hang our hat too heavy on paleo because we're like, paleo is going to come up and it's going to come back down. Like these kind of like lower carb diets, like just reinvent themselves every like 8 to 10 years. It's like South Beach, Atkins, paleo, then it
Yeah.
morphed to keto. Now it's like carnivore. I feel like, those things just move. Whole 30, everything's kind of like on a cycle. We were just betting on like the macro trend of seed oils and the macro trend that people don't want sugar in everything. Like the mayonnaise doesn't need to have sugar. Who knew? Yeah.
Marketing is a strong suit of yours. When did you realize that?
That's a good question. I was at an advertising agency, like I was an account exec at an advertising agency and managed the Frito-Lay account. And I had a good eye for design and weighed in on like naming projects for Frito-Lay brands and stuff like
That's
that.
neat.
Yeah, that was fun. So I think I got to like maybe express a little more of my just like innate creative in there. Like that was probably where I like honed in on that.
So what was it like in the early days when y'all started? Did you initially launch in Whole Foods, or where were you selling the product? And you said it was the mayonnaise.
We ran, our first run was 18,000 jars of mayonnaise. And we were like, if we sell this out in a year, that will be a success. We launched it online. Thrive Market was launching at the same time. So we launched with Thrive Market and we sold out our 18,000 jars of mayonnaise in like 5 days. And then we were like, shit, this
Wow.
is
So was that
crazy.
because of Mark?
Online, fully online.
So was
Yeah.
Mark's presence on the internet?
He was blogging before blogging was cool and doing paleo before paleo was cool. So he had 350,000 newsletter subscribers to this blog, Mark's Daily Apple, and he was writing like one blog post a day. And so we had people to talk to when we launched, and then we launched with Thrive Market. And at the time, like Instacart hadn't been invented yet, and Thrive Market was really taking off in a big way. Like, Thrive Market's kind of like Costco meets Amazon online a little bit. Like you can get
Yeah.
Costco type pricing, but on Whole Foods types. I'm sorry, Costco meets Whole Foods online. You can get Costco type pricing on Whole Food type products. So it was a good like discovery place for the brand, but we pretty quickly moved into Whole Foods. So we launched February 2nd of 2015 online. And by June, we were on shelves in Whole Foods in the Rocky Mountain region.
How do you even approach getting into Whole Foods? Like, seems like an impossible process, or is it because you had such a track record that you call the buyer and like, hey, I already
No, it
sold this
wasn't
much?
like that. I didn't have like they didn't know me over there at Whole Foods. It's just like, it's not impossible. There is just a process. So like all these retailers publish like a category review schedule. So you can even go online and find when does Whole Foods review each category. And there's like paperwork due. And then like you submit a PowerPoint that Whole Foods provides. You fill in all your information. If they want to meet you, they will, or they might just tell you yes or no, and you would roll out on shelves like a year later.
Okay. And so I guess my follow-up question to that, I think if I had a food brand, I would think like that's my goal to get into Whole Foods. But I know you've talked about this some, is like, why is that maybe not the ultimate goal? And what are the challenges of being in a store like Whole Foods?
Yeah. So I talk to a lot of people who like want to enter into the food industry. And I think it's like Mark and I always say, like, if we knew then what we know now, like, would you have ever even like done it? Like it was nice to
Yeah.
be a little bit naive in a sense, right? But the reality of the food industry is it's incredibly low margin. When we were doing 50 million in revenue, our EBITDA was 2 million. So 2 million of like bottom line profit. And we had like a $9 million line of credit that we needed to run the business on that Mark had a personal guarantee on. So meaning if we didn't pay our debt, like they could seize Mark's house, if you will. So I feel like people think, oh, I'm going to get in Whole Foods and I'm going to have this like profitable business, and it's just not the case. Like the distributor takes a cut, you have to put your product on sale, there's spoilage issues, or you need to give one case of product for free for every store you get into the first time you're rolled on shelves, there's slotting fees. It's just a tough industry. So I always like recommend people launch online and like develop a profitable business before or they need to go raise money before they're able to head to the grocery store. I also think people go in with these economies of scale notions that just don't exist. Like, well, today I can make my mayonnaise for $2, but in 3 years when we're at scale, it'll be $1.50. Like, I can tell you, it cost me more to make a jar of Primal Kitchen mayonnaise today than it made 9 years ago. And we are like,
What?
a $200 million brand. So it's
Wow.
like, it's crazy. I mean, you've got like minimum wage increases. And then, I mean, it's been a very inflationary time period, right? If we the past 9 years. So that could weigh into this in some regard. But yeah, I think you got to go out the gate with like strong margins and a very clear path to some margin improvement. And you can't just be banking on like, oh, well, we'll be able to buy this ingredient cheaper when we're buying it in bulk because the bird flu happens and egg prices shoot through the roof or, God knows what. It's just like, you can't even imagine. Like, it's
What
crazy.
could go wrong? Yeah, it's interesting because, I'm sort of in the beauty or cosmetics world, talking to founders in that space typically, and I kind of hear similar sentiments for things like Sephora. Everyone thinks it's the goal to get into Sephora, but once you're in, it's like a whole other set of problems,
Yeah.
pop up. It's kind of like the
Yeah.
same thing, it sounds
You
like.
really got to be ready to be like a CEO, and like you got to have money, and you're dealing with like contracts and distributors, and it could suck the fun out of the company for someone who like wants to bring grandma's recipe to the masses. There might be like a way to do that isn't so painful. And I
Yeah,
think you
yeah.
got to be serious about like what is your end goal. And, if your end goal is to like have a lifestyle business, then you make different decisions than you do if your end goal is to like grow a company like Primal Kitchen and sell it for $200 million. Those are just like different decisions you make.
Yeah, it sounds like you have to be very established and have all the pieces functioning very efficiently and profitably before you were to do something like go in a big retailer, which I
I
guess,
mean, yes and no. Like, we didn't have all that, but like, you should definitely know enough to go in with eyes wide open on just how the industry works, I think. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and how low margin it is, because that just means there's a lot of cash requirements. And so, how are you going to like meet the cash requirements of the business? And, I see a lot of people like bank on economies of scale, then they're stuck raising money for their whole life. And all they do is just raise money because they don't have good unit economics. So, it's like going in with a really high gross margin, and you might have the most expensive product on the shelf. But for us, I mean, we sold a $9.99 jar of mayonnaise, right? So we were like, look, in order to have a business, this is a product we want to create. It costs this much. In order for us to have enough margin to stay in business, we need to sell it for $9.99. People either buy it at $9.99 and we have a business, or they don't and we don't have a business. But we're not going to go do like, we aren't MBAs. I'm not like, I didn't put together a business plan ever. We weren't like, okay, if we would have put together a business plan, we would have been like, okay, the category leader sells a 12-ounce jar of mayonnaise for $2.67. We can only be 50% more than that. Maybe we can sell the jar of mayonnaise for $5 and we would have been bankrupt. So like,
Yeah.
I just think you kind of gotta you gotta hold your margin firm. Your unit
Like, this
economics
is
need to be
really what it
solid.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're offering something different,
Yeah.
something that requires more expensive ingredients. It's a niche product. You have to charge what it is. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious though, what was building your team like? I feel like I hear a lot of business owners say that is a hard part of it.
Yeah, I think definitely like there's your team and then there's just like the right people on board around you. And I think the right people on board around you is like advisors, legal advisors, accountants, lawyers, IP lawyers, like, that you don't need to spend like a ton of money, but like maybe it's $5,000 on like an IP attorney, right? Or, whatever. It doesn't need to be like crazy. You probably don't even need to do it on day one. But I think having the right like opinions, I always say this, but opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. And I think that very much extends to like healthcare and legal advice. And so you could talk to the same lawyer and get like 4 different recommendations. So you just need to like do your diligence, like get good referrals for who you're working with. But then as far as building out your actual team, so I was like very unconventional at Primal. My first hire was one of my best friends from childhood who still works for Primal today. She's our VP of marketing, Anna, and she was working at Toro, which is a golf supply manufacturing company. So
Yeah.
she, like, yeah, like nothing to do with food, but she had been in communications for the University of Minnesota, and I knew she was just like really hardworking, and she got it. And we were a brand that like, I think we benefited more from like a passionate employee than a experienced employee. We're a startup, so we could take a chance on people, and they could take a chance on us getting in early on a fast growing company. So I hired all my friends. So Anna came over. Anna's best friend from college, who I've known since we were 20. She runs Amazon for us. My best friend in LA manages the Target account. A girl I played soccer with runs sales for us on in the Natural Channel. A woman, Amanda, who hired me at Kavita, is our head of growth today at Primal. She was a super early advisor for us. Our COO had hired me as a consultant at Mad Dog Athletics Company. I brought him over. So it was really like yeah.
But it's what you're getting if you're working with your friends. Like those are the people that you really know who they are and how they operate.
Yeah, I meet a lot of people who are like, oh, that's a disaster. Like I did that with one person. And like, I can honestly say I don't have like a single friend relationship that's like blown up because I've hired them, and I've hired like 15 friends. But it takes a certain
That's
kind of,
really neat. That's
yeah.
pretty neat.
I mean, I think it does take a certain kind of like, there's, I wouldn't hire all my friends. And it takes, a certain kind of like maturity and just like relationship dynamic in order to be able to like manage that. But for me, it worked.
It worked. Yeah. That seems like it would make it, how you communicate with your friends, and to be able to extend that into work. I think it would make a smooth transition. I could definitely see the benefits of that.
Yeah. And I think it
Yeah.
worked because the brand worked, and imagine if like we would have bombed and I would have had to like lay off my friends, right? Like that would have sucked. So I don't know. It
Flip
all worked.
side.
We
It
got
all
lucky.
You went for it.
We went for it. Yeah.
Why do you think it was so successful and so fast? Like you always hear that business takes a long time, and like if it looks like an overnight success, it's really not. Like why? But it does seem like Primal Kitchen was really fast.
I mean, we launched innovation fast. So we expanded, like when we launched, we had one mayonnaise, and we expanded by the end of the year. Before I hired like anyone, we had an avocado oil, 2 bar SKUs, 2 salad dressings. Like it was crazy. We expanded. I would not recommend that. We expanded into all these categories when I was like the only human there. But I think Mark had been blogging and like developing a following for 10 years prior to our launch. So that really accelerated things for us on the front end for sure. And then we sold the company to Kraft Heinz in 2018. We closed in January of 2019. And, yeah, we got to 50 million in 3 years. It was fast. Do I know founders that have gotten way bigger than that faster than we have? Like, yes, I do, but it was certainly quick for us. I think we had we were a first mover with an innovative product. There was a lot of authenticity with the brand, and it was just the right product at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. I remember seeing a video that you made about like coming up with a ranch dressing recipe in your kitchen. I thought that was so
Yeah.
cool. Like how involved were you in the actual recipes, I guess? Is that what you call
Like
it? Recipes,
super
formulas?
involved, super involved.
Really?
I
That's
mean,
neat.
the ranch dressing, we did make the formula for that like in my kitchen with a little, like, I swear the scale could only be used for drugs, but this little tiny scale that like food scale that goes down to like the 10th of a gram or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're
And we're
talking about.
measuring the herbs and mixing it up and then tasting it and then adjusting things in the Excel spreadsheet, mixing it up again and tasting again. So, we did a lot of that, I would say, with a bunch of SKUs. And then some SKUs like our co-man, we would have a brief and we'd say, this is what we want it to taste like, or we're looking for this vinaigrette, and they would do it in the house, and we'd taste, provide feedback, the back and forth.
So were you like a foodie? Do you like to cook? Like, has that kind of been your thing, or is it experimental doing it for the brand?
Look, I think I was definitely like experimental for sure. Like I remember making some like apple pie or something at Thanksgiving, and my family was like, oh, this is my dad. I remember my dad was like, oh, this is really good. It's just missing like the gluten and the sugar, like I was into like, how can I make things
Yeah.
that aren't healthy taste healthy? And I'm like, isn't this great? And everyone's like, this is not great, but whatever. But no, I like to cook. I'm like laughing because I have 3 kids now under the age of 6. So I'm like, do I like to cook? I can't even remember what I was like before I had these kids, right? Like now you're just like, what's the most efficient meal we can get on the table in 30 minutes, because it's a
It
miracle.
like kids in a way forced me to learn to cook, because otherwise like I wasn't taking the time. But when you have kids and you're like, I want to feed them well, then like it forces you, it forced me to really think about what ingredients I was using. And also I made things so simply, never fancy at all. And so I guess so you were making recipes. How hard was it to find a good, I guess you call it co-man? Is that what you call the
And yeah, a
did you have to
co-packer
try
or
a few?
contract
Is that
manufacturer. That is hard. We moved around on some products like bars and gosh, I don't even know. But then some products we've stuck with the same co-man, the whole time we've been manufacturing. We did build our own line in a craft facility in Champaign. So that was really cool. So we've been working on that at Primal Kitchen for the last like 2 or 3 years, but just to have a
wow.
line built specifically for our like allergen needs and all of that kind of stuff has been very cool. But we still work with a network of co-mans. That's definitely like a hard piece of the puzzle to figure out. Who's going to
Mhm.
be on your
Yeah, I can
team? When are they
imagine.
coming
Yeah.
on? Where are you going to make it? How are you going
Yeah.
to fund it? These are just like the big first year questions you got to answer.
It's like hard stuff. Well, I want to talk too about I think you and I were talking about this before I was recording. I don't know. But I really enjoy your content so much because you're like funny, but you're open about all of these entrepreneurial questions that people have and it's just hard to get real information and I view you as a cheerleader for the entrepreneur. You're a mentor, online mentor, and I appreciate that as someone who's trying to get a business going. So it's nice to have people like you. And I know that's part of what you're working on now. I think you said you do consulting, but I'd love to know what you're doing. What's going on?
Yeah. And then I would love to know what you're doing. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you while we're here. But
Thank
no, so
you.
I'm in an advisory role for Primal Kitchen now and also for a private equity fund, super cool opportunity with this fund called Summit. And then I'm working on like a little launching a new brand actually on the side. So a sparkling protein water I'm super excited about called
That sounds
Waay.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
There's nothing out there like that. Like that's a totally new category, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely new. It's cool. There's a cool, ingredient that dissolves in water so you can have like a fruit flavored whey protein drink, if you will. So I'm very
So in the
pumped about
afternoon, if I want a protein snack, instead of like grabbing my nuts and whatever else I grab, I could just grab this drink and go.
Yeah, 12 grams of protein. And it's like, I would say it would replace like your, poppy or spindrift consumption, right? Like, oh, I drink sparkling water
Okay.
anyway. I would rather have it with like 12 grams of protein. I would grab it in the afternoon because sometimes I'm not hungry. I'm just
Hmm.
snacky. So it's nice to just have something like a little treat.
Yeah.
Not what
A
the
lot of
TikTok
times I'd
girls
rather
talk about.
have a beverage than an actual snack for
Yeah.
that time period. Like, especially like that afternoon period. I don't
Yeah. You
really
just
want
get
to eat before
tired.
dinner.
I
Yeah.
know. Yeah. You get tired and you don't eat before dinner for sure. And even in the morning, like, there's not a lot of breakfast happening for me in the morning trying to get kids out the door for school.
With
So it
three
would be
under
nice.
six or three under
3
seven, is that
under
what you said? It's
6, yeah.
crazy. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
No,
It's
it's a lot. It's fun. All
it's
boys, a lot of fun energy. It's good.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, do you have the drink made? Like, have you been testing it? Is it that far along, or can
I've
you
been
say?
testing it. I've got a name. There's like a coming soon page at drinkwaay.com, WAAY with 2 A's. And I have like a converted an old social media site that I haven't even like updated the pictures on. I'm so really need to get my act together. But yeah, Way is going to be the name of it. And I'll keep you
So
posted when it
exciting.
launches, probably in the next like 5-6 months.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
super thank you for all the time and telling me about your story, about your journey. I really have enjoyed talking to you today and then following you. It's been really inspirational. So
It's so fun.
thank
I
you.
love it. All right,
Yeah.
Andrea, we'll talk soon.
Okay. Have a good day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.